Many of the witnesses watched the crime scene unfold from their own apartment balconies. So these balconies were full last night of people trying to figure out what was going on right across the street at the Hitt Street garage. Many of the people I spoke with said they were very surprised that it happened in this kind of area. The thing is that right now in Columbia there's absolutely no restrictions placed on landowners as to what they can do with their buildings if they're considered historic. Right now there's actually 148 historical landmarks in Columbia. 43 of these historic properties are in the downtown area, like the Missouri Theater. Right now there's no plans to develop on any of these historic properties, but if there were, there'd be nothing stopping developers from doing whatever they wanted. Here's another problem for students trying to park on campus. These pay-as-you-go machines aren't very reliable. You can insert your credit card or coins, and sometimes, well, nothing comes out. An independent firm is testing the ground around the Columbia coal ash pond off of Business Loop 70. They'll be using things like this, a breathalyzer, to check sobriety on the roadways. Since receiving the grant, they've added bike lanes all across the town, like this one on Green Meadows. I've been trying to get a hold of the city manager's office in Columbia for the past few weeks to get their side of the story. I've been calling and leaving several voicemails, but still haven't heard anything back. I'm here at a local CrossFit gym where classes have just begun this morning. Look what they did for the warm-up this morning. Kettlebell swings. This one's 18 pounds, but a lot of people were lifting a little bit heavier than this. I spent the afternoon at a truck stop in Kingdom City where many of the truck drivers said they just couldn't believe the CDC's new statistics. One of the truck drivers I talked with said that if he takes all of his safety precautions seriously throughout the day, then he doesn't think he should have to worry about dangers on the roadways. Right, so many of the gyms that recently opened in Columbia feature classes more than just a regular gym kind of setup. So I stopped by some of these new gyms to check out what they're all about. Take a look. In 3 out of the last 6 state budgets, state employees received no general salary increase, but the cost of living increased overall. I spoke with one working mom who said this has made things quite difficult.
KOMU-8's Tiege Dooley-Panko is here to tell us what she learned about sex trafficking and why we're all responsible for eliminating the problem. From 2008 to 2012, there were 125 trafficking cases reported by the Cole County Prosecuting Attorney's Office in western and central Missouri. According to the Department of Justice, St. Louis is on the list of the top 20 cities for human trafficking. I spoke with a survivor of sex trafficking who says the crime happens much more than we may think. Looking at Jennifer Lubert's life, a proud mother of 2 and strong in her faith, you may never guess what darkness she's battled in the past.
I was being purchased at that time and I had no idea.
Lubert says she was told she was going to model in Maui, but when she got there, she realized that wasn't the case.
The 4 men, older men, quickly shut the door behind me and locked the door. I had my phone, and that was all I had. One gentleman took my purse and went that way, and one took my phone and went that way, and there were 2 older men in front of me, and I was instantly given a shot. Still to this day, I don't know what I was drugged with the 3 days that I was there.
She didn't know until many years later, but she now believes she was a victim of sex trafficking, which happens more than we may think in mid-Missouri.
Cited as the fastest growing crime worldwide.
And it can take on many forms.
What it might look to us is someone just choosing to engage in prostitution. And in fact, it's someone who's being controlled.
And Ward says it can happen to anyone.
Who may be at the mall and somebody sees them as you're beautiful and you would make a great model and why don't you audition for this modeling job, and everything can look legitimate.
There's one place making it even easier for traffickers to find their next target. That's the internet. According to the United Nations office, it's estimated that 76% of transactions for sex with underage girls start on the internet.
The internet is the sole source of how people are finding other people.
Tracy Perkins is a detective for the Boone County Sheriff's Department and Cyber Crimes Task Force. She said sex trafficking in mid-Missouri is a real issue.
I think it's more common that it's happening just because people are becoming more greedier and they know that that's a mass production line, because the more girls you have, the more money you're going to get.
Ward said the only way this will ever end is if the community gains awareness and takes responsibility.
The culture of objectification and the culture of over-sexualizing girls and women, that's all part of creating an atmosphere, a culture that makes it easy for something like sex trafficking and labor trafficking to exist.
Lubert now works with the Mid-Missouri Stop Human Trafficking Coalition as a mentor to young survivors.
Now looking back, it was all just, God's plan.
The National Human Trafficking Resource Center offers a list of clues that could indicate a person is being trafficked. Some of these clues include evidence of being controlled, not speaking on their own behalf, or no form of identification. For more information on how to report a human trafficking crime, visit KOMU.com. Many of the witnesses watched the crime scene unfold from their own apartment balconies. So these balconies were full last night of people trying to figure out what was going on right across the street at the Hitt Street Garage. Many of the people I spoke with said they were very surprised that it happened in this kind of area. John Paul and his pup Aspen usually have nothing to worry about living downtown.
Like, this is a nice area of town.
But last night was different.
Trying to fall asleep, and then I hear what sounded like 2 pops.
But it didn't end there.
And I sat up, because it sounded like gunshots, but it wasn't like a for sure thing. And then about 6 more shots rang out rapidly, and I knew at that point like there was something going on in the garage.
Paul and his neighbors watched anxiously from their balconies onto the scene below.
It just looked like chaos. Everyone was running around. Nobody out here that was already out here knew what was going on, and it was just an intimidating time.
Paul says last night could affect him for a while.
I walked in the parking garage every day. I park my motorcycle there, so it's kind of nerve-wracking though at night to know that like somebody has been killed there.
Some witnesses got up close and personal with the crime scene last night and took some pictures, sent them to us, but unfortunately they were too graphic to show you on air. Reporting live in Columbia, I'm Tiege Dooley-Panko, KOMU-8 News.
A salesman pleaded guilty in federal court this week to selling $750,000 worth of synthetic marijuana, often known as spice. Today we investigated if there is still a demand for the phony marijuana. KOMU-8's Tiege Dooley-Panko is live at the Boone County Sheriff's Department to tell us how synthetic marijuana is still lighting up the black market. Here at the Boone County Sheriff's Department, detectives say spice is still an issue, even if some of the chemicals used to make it were banned. I spoke with business owners and detectives, and they said this thing isn't going away. This smoke shop doesn't sell any type of spice, but
there's totally a demand for it. I would say that we deal with a dozen inquiries about it a day.
Who's looking to buy it may come as a surprise.
35 to 45 is probably about the target range. The draw is that it doesn't show up on a drug test. If you work, in a field where they're going to test you often, those are the people who come in looking for it.
Tom O'Sullivan, a detective for Boone County Sheriff's Department, says the substance is just showing up in different places.
Seeing private individuals basically making their own K2 and selling it in the same manner that illegal drug dealers would peddle it.
O'Sullivan says it's a constant game of cat and mouse to try and eliminate the drug.
A number of the substances that were used for the manufacturing of K2 have been banned, so these individuals who are making it, they just alter the recipe a little bit to where the substance is not illegal.
Still, some are surprised by K2's popularity.
There's like lead shavings and like brain swelling chemicals, and I just don't understand why you would risk your life on something like that.
Poison centers in the U.S. reported receiving 3,700 calls last year for people being exposed to this drug. That is 1,000 more calls than they received in 2013. Reporting live in Columbia, I'm Tiege Dooley-Panko, KOMU-8 News. Turns out provisions to protect historical property in Columbia don't exist right now, which is why some people are saying there's such a rush for developers to build higher and higher in the downtown area. I spoke with one of the managers here at Shakespeare's who said that the history of the building isn't quite as important as the memories that were made here.
It's my whole life. I mean, I've been working there since I was 19 years old. My entire adult life has been spent in that building.
Manager Kurt Murching said the impending move is going to be bittersweet, but the improvements are much needed.
We grew over the years in bit by bit, and so what we work in to make the pizzas is a convoluted Rube Goldberg mess. It's just all kinds of crazy.
But that has many residents concerned about how developers are slicing up downtown Columbia and historical property.
It's historic. It means pleasant associations for thousands of people. When my kids come back to Columbia from where they live all over the country, the first thing they do is get with their friends and come down to Shakespeare's and hang out, have a pizza, drink a beer, and reacquaint themselves.
And he fears if this pattern continues,
I'm going to miss the fact that you can stand on the corner and feel like part of a community instead of just on the edge of another apartment house.
The thing is that right now in Columbia there's absolutely no restrictions placed on landowners as to what they can do with their buildings if they're considered historic. Right now there's actually 148 historical landmarks in Columbia. 43 of these historic properties are in the downtown area, like the Missouri Theater. Right now there's no plans to develop on any of these historic properties, but if there were, there'd be nothing stopping developers from doing whatever they wanted. Which is what one Columbia resident thinks is necessary to preserve the feeling of the town.
Very important that there be some overarching controls over these things. It just matters that the town have a certain feel to it, and once they keep tearing down these buildings, it just won't anymore.
One member of the Historical Society agrees there should be some sort of preservation clause.
We need to put a plan in so that some of the buildings that really have superb and wonderful history, that tell us who we are and where we came from and what the story of this community is, we need to make a plan so that those are with us for a very long time.
But he also says change is necessary for a town to prosper.
There will always be change, and it's hard for several of us who live in this day and age to see that, but Columbia was beautiful then, it's beautiful now, and I know it'll be beautiful 100 years from now.
Still, Murching says Shakespeare's is going to keep as much the same for the customer experience as possible.
It's not just the box that the party happens in. The box is changing, but we're bringing back all the tables and chairs, the signs, as much as we can. We want to keep the nostalgia going, put a new restaurant in the new building, and just keep throwing the same party.
The same company that owns Brookside Student Housing just purchased land at the site of Bengals Bar and Grill and Casablanca Mediterranean Cafe. No plans have been filed on those locations just yet, though.